So, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. I am not sure kailan nyo to babasahin, papanoorin, or pakikinggan, but I'm certain that you will. So, good day to you. And let me just recap what we did last time sa first part ng personality discussion, right? So, sa ating introduction to psychology, we just covered yung surface level ng theories of personality. So, we've discussed Freud, Adler, Jung, Horney sa psychoanalytic theory, which delves directly saying na unconscious is the root of personality, right? We've also talked about humanistic theory, which says we naturally strive for growth. No, it was pioneered by Maslow and Rogers. For Michel, for social cognitive theory, it says na the behavior of the person is the outcome of the person and the situation. Okay? Basically, it's just about social and cognition. Now, we've also discussed trait, no? Saying disposition are the main force, right? We've also covered the evolutionary biological na kinover ni Boss and Isaac, saying na traits evolved for survival and rooted in biology. All right. So for this part two, we'll talk about more in the sense of the nature and nurture, the shared environment, the personality as a whole. Iiwan na natin si theories of personality. We'll just talk about the personality itself and what are the aspects that affects the personality. Okay. So before we start, have you ever asked yourself, bakit ako ganito? Genetics ba 'to o dahil sa parenting style ng magulang ko, hindi ba ako masyadong inalagaan, di ako kinilala, di ako minahal ng magulang ko, ang drama. Pero the question is bakit ka ganyan, right? Was it because of genetics? That's the classic debate of nature versus nurture, no? And ito yung eksaktong tanong na sasagutin natin all throughout this second part of personality. And I just want to give you a disclaimer, a spoiler, no? Hindi ito either or. We've already talked about it. This is both, always. Always and always, palagi at palagi, sila ay magkasama. Hindi siya either or. Magkasama sila. And mas complicated pa to sa inaasahan natin sa kung paano ko siya diniscuss ng mga earlier parts ng discussion. So we'll talk about the origins of personality. Okay? Nature at nurture, hindi sila magkalaban. Magkasama sila all throughout, right? Yung personality ay shaped ng nature, which is the genetics, biology, and the nurture, which is environment, culture, experiences. Yan. And yung interaction ng dalawa ay makikita sa mga perspective na to. Una is the genetics. Pangalawa, temperament and fetal development. And pangatlo is the cultural influences. So una, pag-usapan natin yung genetics. Okay? Walang iisang personality gene. Okay? Kahit isa. Bago tayo mag-dive in, importanteng maintindihan nyo na walang iisang shy gene, walang iisang aggressive gene, walang iisang smart gene, walang iisang personality gene. Okay? Yung complex traits, kasama ang personality ay hindi resulta ng iisang gene. Okay? Yung genome mo ay ang starting point, hindi ito yung end point ng kung paano mo may express yung genes or what we call the phenotype. Naalala niyo pa si phenotype and genotype from the past discussions? Mhm. Good, good. Ibig sabihin, kahit nasa DNA mo yung tendency, depende pa rin sa maraming bagay kung paano ito lalabas or mae-execute. Kunwari, kung may tendency ka to be a musician, kasi nasa genes mo, 'di ba? Your parents are musician. Nasa DNA mo, yung father mo magaling na musician, pero lumaki ka in a place na kinamumuhian yung music. Lumaki ka in a place na hindi kilala yung music. Have you watched the movie Coco? 'Di ba si Miguel, music deprived yung family nila, nag-run ng business and shoes instead. Although yung meron siyang gene, meron siyang specific gene to be a musician. And luckily actually no na nurture 'yon on his end somehow kasi nagpe-play siya pero patago lang. Pero for the rest of the family na buhay pa that time, they could have no, they could have foster that specific gene na napasa mula sa great 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 grandfather nila or grandparents nila, 'di ba? So may dalawang way to study genetics and personality. These are the gene studies and the twin adoption studies. Yung gene studies, hinahanap niya yung marker of differences ng particular na gene locations. May dalawang kind ng gene studies. The first one is the candidate gene studies, which uses a QTL approach, no, to look for the location of specific bits of DNA on genes that might be associated with particular behaviors. Okay? Tinatawag natin itong genetic markers ng behavior. Kaya yung gene study, again, ay naghahanap talaga ng markers of difference. Pero sir, bakit quantitative? Bakit hindi qualitative? Kasi po, yung traits or yung mga traits na ito ay nasa continuum. From very little hanggang very much. Tulad ng anxiety. May mga taong hindi anxious. Karamihan ay average and I can attest that. At ilan lang yung sobrang anxious. Hindi siya black and white. Okay? And through lots of research, they found out na QTL method points and always points to genetic markers for several basic personality traits like novelty or thrill seeking, impulsivity, and neuroticism or anxiety. Isa sa pinaka-interesting na examples ng QTL research ay yung thrill seeking. Kasi yung thrill-seeking personality ay 'di ba, yun yung tendency na hanapin yung risky, exciting activities like, bungee jumping, mountain climbing, scuba diving, 'yan. Yung mga taong para sa kanila yung rush ay isang positive feeling, na parang kapag walang rush hindi sila nabubuhay. They actually need that dopamine for them to feel alive or at least living, 'di ba? They need to feel that pain, gano'n siya. I remember may isang theory, I forgot the name, pero yung mga taong deficient sa dopamine daw ay naghahanap ng exciting situations para ma-trigger yung dopamine release nila. So, dito pumapasok yung genetics. May tinatawag or may gene na tinatawag na DRD4 involved sa dopamine production sa limbic system natin. Okay? So, kapag mas mahaba daw yung gene sequence ng DRD4, less efficient yung dopamine production. So, yung mga thrill seekers ay dapat may mas mahabang version ng DRD4, 'di ba? And according sa research results ng specific research na yon, exactly like that, it's confirmed. Parang pinrove lang nila yung point. So yung kaibigan mo na palaging gustong like palagi nag-aaya, "Tara hiking tayo, tara rides tayo sa MOA, punta tayong, EK," ganyan, or Star City, 'yan, bungee jumping tayo, sabay tayo sa roller coaster, mag-travel 'no, ng walang plan, right? They want that thrill. Possible na literally hindi lang siya adventurous by choice and totoo at proven na merong biological basis 'yon. Okay? Gets po ang candidate gene studies, ang QTL and DID4? Okay. So, next is the Genome-Wide Association Studies or the GWAS. Dito naman, very simple, yung mga researchers, nagsesearch sila ng small variation sa buong genome na nag-occur sa iba't ibang frequency sa iba't ibang tao. When they used GWAS, nalaman nila na ang genetic forms ay associated sa neuroticism, extraversion, impulsivity, openness to experience, excitement seeking, and creativity. Yun lang. Okay? Gets po? Gets naman? Give me a thumbs up if gets. Alright? Okay, that's good. Now let's proceed sa twin adoption studies, which asks the question, gaano kalaki yung role ng genetics? Yun yung pinakaunang question talaga nun. Kasi gusto nilang i-prove na merong role yung genetics. Isa sa pinaka-classic na methods ng behavioral genetics, yung studies about twins, gumamit sila ng both identical and fraternal twins na pinalaki ng magkasama and hiwalay. Okay? Yung logic is that yung identical twins daw may 100% na same DNA. And si fraternal twins naman ay may 50% same na DNA. So kung yung identical twins ay pinalaki sa magkaibang environment, Like kunwari yung isa sa Pilipinas, yung isa sa ibang bansa, mas magkapareho pa rin sila compared sa fraternal twins. Okay? Na gano'n din, pinalaki yung isa sa Pilipinas, yung isa sa ibang bansa, gano'n. Yun ay strong evidence para sa genetic influence. And yung findings nila is that 40 to 60% ng differences sa personality traits ay genetic or heritable. Kunwari, for extraversion, 0.5 correlation para sa identical twins, 0.24 para sa fraternal, no? And 48% heritability. In neuroticism at conscientiousness, 50 to 55% heritable. Sa openness to experience and agreeableness naman ay 40% heritable. In simple terms, about half ng kung bakit ikaw ay ikaw galing sa DNA mo, napatunayan siya ng twin adoption studies. Pero may mga research or may mga certain research, especially the recent research, na nagsasabing yung heritability daw ay bumababa from 50% hanggang 35% habang tumatanda tayo mula early adulthood to late adulthood. Bakit? Kasi po, habang lumalaki tayo, mas maraming iba't ibang experiences yung nadadagdag na nag-accumulate at nagiging mas influential sa atin. 'Di ba? Sabi ko 50% of 40 to 60%, so almost half, 'di ba? Yung genetics. So yung natitira na sabihin natin 40 to 60% din ay explained ng non-genetic sources. Which is the first one ay ang shared environment. Ito yung living conditions na common sa twins like magulang, school, peers, ganyan. Then we also have the non-shared environment. Ito yung differences ng twins like sa birth order, ibang barkada, ibang teachers, ganyan. 'Yan. Okay? Yun lang, yun yung idea ng non-shared environment natin. And yung surprising finding dito is that yung non-shared environment yung mas nakakaapekto kesa sa shared environment in looking for the environmental effects, yung nurture effects sa personality. Ibig sabihin, hindi yung pagkakaroon ng same parents, same school, same house, yung mas nag-shape ng personality ng isang tao, kundi yung experiences na hindi pinaghahatian ng magkapatid. Okay, like yung ibang group, ibang kaibigan, ibang teacher na nakapag-inspire sa kanila, ibang idol, ibang hobbies, no? Or ibang peer group sa school. Kunwari, may kambal ka, tas lumaki kayo na sa same na bahay and parehong magulang. Pero kung bakit iba yung personality nyo ay dahil sa non-shared experiences. Ibang barkada, ibang experience sa school, ibang events na nagbago ng perspective nyo, ibang mga hilig, ganyan. Kaya may mga kambal na although nung bata, same ng hilig, same ng damit, paglaki biglang nagbago, biglang magkaiba, ganun. Kasi nag-iiba rin sila ng interests over time, ng hilig, ng idol, di ba? Yan. So, may magkaiba silang perspectives. Okay? Gets naman po ang twin adoption studies. Okay, that's good, that's good. Now let's talk about the temperament and the fetal environment. Okay, ang temperament ay biologically based disposition natin na mag-behave in a certain way. Ito yung nagsisilbing foundation ng later personality traits natin, and the evidences shows na ang temperament at personality differences ay nagmamanifest na bago ka pa ipanganak. Specifically, parang ganito siya eh. Kapag daw may mataas na heart rate yung bata na or yung fetus na nasa 36 weeks gestation pa lang, possibly merong less predictability ng eating and sleeping habits by 3 and 6 months after birth. No? Then malaki rin yung change ng lesser emotionality by 6 months. Okay? So if meron namang high activity levels sa 36 weeks, then mabagal mag-adapt sa new people or situations and merong irregular eating and sleeping habits sa 3 and 6 months. Tapos, mas difficult or fuzzy sila by 6 months. Gets po? Basically, ang sinasabi is kahit nasa tiyan ka pa lang, may signals na ang utak at katawan mo ng kung anong temperament ang meron ka kapag lumabas ka na. Also, ang prenatal environment ay may malaking role sa personality ng isang tao. Everything that I'm discussing with you is through research, no? Lahat 'to ay napatunayan ng research, ng science, ng biology themselves, okay? So, 'yun. So yung prenatal environment daw ay may malaking role sa personality ng isang tao. Isa sa mga outcomes nito is the birth weight. Okay? Sabi, kapag daw low birth weight ay sign ng poor prenatal environment. Ito ay positively correlated sa brain volume or yung idea kung para madaling malaman kung mas mailiit or mas malaki yung utak, no, ng isang bata. If low birth weight, then maliit yung utak. And negatively correlated siya sa cautiousness, shyness, at risk aversion. Meaning, yung mga low birth weight babies, yung mga maliliit yung utak, ay they tend to be more cautious, more shy, no? They're shy and risk averse habang lumalaki. Okay? So yung may malaking mga utak, then they're not shy. They're very outgoing. They're not that cautious, no? Gano'n sila, okay? So tapos it is important din, um, to know na kung ang nanay, yung buntis na nanay ay depressed, anxious, nakaranas ng malaking stress habang buntis, ganyan, mas, like yung mga natural disaster or yung grieving, financial, anything, malamang yung bata ay magiging temperamentally fuzzy sa infancy at, hindi makakapag-control ng emotions habang lumalaki. And the stress ng nanay habang pregnant ay nakakaapekto sa serotonin production ng bata. Alam naman natin na yung serotonin ay critical sa brain at neural development and may role siya sa personality development, right? Gano'n. So, that's it, no? Alam niyo ba na yung, mga infants na pinanganak sa mga nanay na nakaranas ng unusual stress habang pregnant, that they tend to be or to have impaired stress function, higher baseline levels ng stress hormones. Actually, mas mabilis din and mas malakas at mas pronounced yung psychological or yung physiological response sa stress. And nagtutuloy-tuloy hanggang childhood. Ibig sabihin, yung stress ng isang buntis na nanay ay hindi lang sa kanya. Nagre-relay ito and na papasa ito sa baby sa loob ng tiyan. So, ito yung scientific reason kung bakit importante yung mental health ng pregnant women. Hindi lang sila para sa sarili nila, para rin ito sa susunod na personality ng mga anak nila. Okay po? Okay. So, what do you think of personality? Universal ba siya? Is it universal? No? Okay. Alright. So, according sa mga initial discussions dito sa introductions to psychology, if nakinig talaga kayo, no? Opo, personality is universal. Pero merong mga twists. Kasi kung ang personality ay parte ng biology natin, dapat ang same dimensions ay makikita sa lahat ng culture sa buong mundo, 'di ba? Okay? Kasi guess what? Yung big five traits, remember the ocean, those are religiously present in countries like US, UK, Germany, Australia, Iceland, Spain, Portugal, few Asian countries like China, Korea, as well as African countries, no? And meron ding Pacific Rim where Philippines is. So basically, Big Five is a universal. And there is this Neopai, which is a personality inventory, which is a premier research-backed assess adults' personality based on the five-factor model. They measure five broad domains, which is the ocean. So basically, Big Five is universal. Okay? And they translate it sa mahigit 40 different languages and pare-parehong big five dimensions yung lumabas sa lahat. Which is odd if personality is not universal, di ba? Okay? So to back it up, no, may isa pang study ng 880,000 people mula sa 62 countries bawat continents. Sa every continents na yon, meron daw universal changes na nangyayari sa personality habang tumatanda. From early adult to middle adulthood. Okay? And in that specific age, early to mid-adulthood, tayo ay nagiging less anxious, less extroverted, more open, more agreeable, more conscientious, no? Regardless of your experiences, you would be this way. So yung lolo at lola natin na mas matyaga at mas mabait kaysa sa atin nung bata sila, may scientific basis yun. It is because experience is universal too, 'di ba? And the more experience you get, the more things you learn, the bigger your personality is. Learning from your experience is crucial to every person. Okay? Pero hindi naman identical ang personality development. The only thing identical is that personality is universal. Pero yung development itself is not, no? Okay? It varies per culture. For instance, in Asian countries, may extra dimension na rarely seen sa Western cultures, no? Which is the interpersonal relatedness. Kasama rito yung pagiging respectful, obedient demeanor toward others, hospitality, di ba? We have this belief in saving face, no? Allowing a losing party to maintain esteem and reputation. In Asia or in Asian countries, pag napahiya ng isang tao, pinapabayaan na natin. Parang enough na yon nakaparusahan sa ginawa niya. Karma na yon napahiya siya, ganyan. We don't go that far na parang maka-cancel ka ng sobra, hindi ka na makakabangon talaga, ganun. Right? The emphasis of the Asian countries or the Eastern culture is that we maintain harmonious relationship with one another. Ito ay reflection ng collectivism. More concerned about the impact of behavior on family, friends, and social group. And contrast ito sa individualism ng Western cultures which is more concerned sa personal goals nila. Okay? That's individualism. Gets po? For example, sa Asian employee, no, if you offer a promotion sa isang Asian employee, kailangan niyang mag-relocate, kailangan niyang umalis. Kunwari sa Manila siya nakadestino ngayon. Sa Manila din yung family niya. Then mapopromote siya into the supervisory level. Ganun kagad. Ang taas kagad. Supervisor kagad. Ang twist, kailangan niya magtrabaho sa El Nido, Palawan. O ano mangyayari? Ang iisipin ng Asian na to is that, paano yung family ko? Okay lang ba yun sa kanila? Kakayanin ko ba kapag malayo sa kanila? Ganun siya, no? Pero in Western employee, kapag yung mga Western employee like US, 'di ba, mga American people, inoferan mo 'yan ng same na promotion. Nagtatrabaho sila in Manila, nandito yung family nila, tapos biglang, wag naman Manila kasi ma-apply yung culture. Kunwari, nagtatrabaho sila sa New York, tapos biglang na-relocate sila, magiging supervisor sila, pero kailangan nilang pumunta sa Canada. The only thing that they will think about is, makakatulong ba to sa career ko? Makakarating ba ako sa executive position? Magkano yung salary na madadagdag, 'di ba? Ganoon lang siya. They don't think about their family at least, 'di ba? Unlike in the Philippines, no? Research found out na compared sa individualist cultures, yung mga collectivist tayo, yung culture natin is that we tend to have higher agreeableness and conscientiousness, lower sa openness to experience. And with this, naintindihan natin kung bakit minsan mas mahirap para sa atin bilang Pilipino na magsabi ng no sa family kesa sa personal na gusto natin. This is the reason kung bakit yung mga working student or sabihin natin yung mga working people, yung mga parents natin, they can sacrifice their wants just to give the wants of their children, no? Kahit yung famous line ng mga matatanda na isusubo ko na lang, ibibigay ko pa sa anak ko. Ganun sila, even if it's a need, hindi nila kayang hindian yung family nila. That's a thing, no? Because we're collectivists. Collectivist tayo. Pero, may pero na naman si Sir, laging may pero si Sir, no? Sa isang interesting subset ng cultural research, meron tinatawag na bicultural people. Sila yung mga taong nag-spend ng substantial amount of time sa dalawang culture and they can now speak the languages. Why? Anong interesting sa kanila? eh, ano lang naman 'yan, mga multilingual people lang, bilingual people lang naman 'yan, 'di ba? Well, ang central findings kasi from this literature is that some bicultural people blend and harmoniously integrate their two identities. Sila yung mga Filipino-Americans or yung mga OFW kids na lumaki sa ibang bansa and nababalance yung Filipino and Western identity nila. Example is si Liza Soberano. I remember sa interview niya, she said na she was born and raised in America for half of her life and have been living in the Philippines for the other half. She has expressed that being half Filipino and being half American allows her to combine the best traits of both cultures. So she's aware of it and she wants it to stay that way. She acknowledges that she's half. She embraces it. She loves it, 'di ba? So she blend, no? And those are called blended bicultural people. And normally, the blended type of bicultural people are high sa openness to experience and higher in psychological well-being. And that is normal kasi syempre they're open to experience two cultures, no? Na hindi madalas ginagawa ng ibang tao. And syempre, kung may someone who fits really well sa gitna ng dalawang culture and the world loves balance, may mga tao sa other edge, no, sa kabilang dulo. Sila yung mga taong tinatawag na conflicted or mga hindi integrated. Yan. Sila yung mga nag-aaway yung dalawang identity nila. Normally, they are higher sa neuroticism, no? Sila yung mga nahihirapan sa adjustment. Yung mga laging may identity crisis, like questioning if Pilipino pa ba ako or Amerikano na ako. Ganyan. Sila yung mga namimili kung ano yung culture na ite-take ko, Filipino or American. And according sa research, kung balanced at blended ang bicultural people, okay ka. It's good, you're good. Pero kung conflicted bicultural people, mas prone kasi sila sa anxiety because of high neuroticism. And again, correlational ito ha. Hindi ito sure kung ang personality ang reason ng cultural experience o yung cultural experience ang cause ng personality change. Hindi natin sure kung alin yung cause and effect, but they are correlational. Okay? Another fun fact, alam nyo ba na yung mga animal may personality rin? No? And I did have cats before and now I have dog. No? Si Baron is a cat, si Gigi, a cat, a black cat, very nonchalant. Si Baron, very chalant. Siguro kasi orange cat siya. Then now I have Sachi. She's not really my dog, but she's a daughter of my partner, no? And she's super sociable and curious like a cat. Ibang-iba yung personality niya sa mga normal na aspin, no? Para sa mga fur parents, obvious 'to. It's normal, no debate, no? They know na may personality yung mga alaga nila. Pero sa psychologists dati, especially dati, ito ay stretching the definition. Baka daw anthropomorphizing lang 'to. Nagpo-project ng human qualities sa hindi human. Kasi nga 'di ba, they can only feel the primitive emotions, right? And personality is composed of complex emotions, traits, 'di ba? Halo-halo 'yan, experiences and everything. Pero if they can only feel primitive emotions, how can they have personality? Parang that's the question na binibigay nila, no? But hanggang 1990s, karamihan sa psychologists ay nagsasabing personality ay for human lang, no? Pero simula nung 1990, nagbago lahat. Si Gosling at si John nung 1999, nag-conduct sila ng meta-analysis ng 19 studies across 12 non-human species. And yung findings is that at least 14 na non-human species ang may personality traits na pwedeng i-categorize along the same dimensions as the human personality. And hindi lang yun primates, no? Aside from them, we also have wild birds, fish, octopus, 'di ba? May human-like personality traits din daw sila. Example, sa isang European bird na katulad ng cicadi, if you don't know that, I know you've sang the song May Isang Chikading, no? That's the bird. Alright. So anyway, when researchers placed a foreign object daw, like battery or pink panther doll sa loob ng cage with the chikadi, yung ibang mga birds, they are consistently curious. Nag-e-explore ng novel object. Tinitingnan nila, pinupuntahan nila, chine-check nila kung ano yun. They're very bold on it. However, other birds consistently withdraw, nag-a-avoid. They're a bit shy. For the same species of a bird, they have different personality, no? Parehong dimension ng infant temperament yun sa tao, which is yung approach, boldness, at ang shyness, which is avoidance, no? Also, isa sa pinaka-interesting na findings nila Gosling at John ay ang chimpanzees, our closest relative. Sabi, may distinct conscientiousness dimension kasama tayo. Ibig sabihin ng conscientiousness sa chimps is that makakapaggawa ng plano at makakapag-control ng impulsive behavior. Eh sir, anong significance nito? Ba't natin pinag-uusapan yung mga hayop, 'di ba? Bakit yung personality ng mga hayop? Kasi po, with the exceptions of chimps and horses, other animals don't have the brain structures required to control impulse, organize, and plan activities in advance. Ang idea is that conscientiousness ang pinaka-recently evolved personality trait. Relatively bago siya sa evolutionary timeline. Yun lang. Technically, yun lang. Okay? Alright, so proceed tayo. Tuloy natin. Anyway, we know na ang field natin, psychology, is often labeled as soft science and sometimes accused of being a pseudoscience precisely kasi we attempt to measure intangible constructs like thoughts, emotions, personality traits, di ba? And to prove everyone wrong that we are a real science, not just a soft one, we have to know how to measure those intangible constructs. So, since personality is an intangible construct, how do we measure personality? Yan. So, may 5 major methods and we'll talk about it one by one. First is the behavioral observation. Ito yung pinaka-diretso at pinaka-objective na way among all of the 5. Kasi we literally observe yung behavior ng isang tao. Binibilang natin yung specific behaviors associated sa particular traits na ini-study natin. Kunwari, gusto kong sukatin yung aggression. So gagawa ako ng video recording, no? Pag-aaralan ng trained raters, tapos bibilangin yung specific na aggressive behaviors, no? Madali siya in a way, in words madali siya, theoretically madali siya, pero mahirap siyang i-execute. Hindi siya gano'n kadali gawin. Kasi maraming questions yung need i-consider. Like anong specific behaviors yung bibilangin bilang aggression, 'di ba? Ano yung aggression? Is it hitting, insulting, sarcasm, ignoring, 'di ba? Paano i-quantify? Continuous ba? O present absent lang, 'di ba? Gaano katagal i-observe? Saan? Is it in real world or sa laboratory? Sino yung magre-rate? Paano mo masisiguradong mag-a-agree yung mga observers mo? Dito pumapasok yung concept ng inter-rater reliability, which we have already discussed before, pero ito yung degree ng agreement ng dalawa or higit pang raters sa parehong behavior. So para ma-consider ang isang rater na reliable, kailangan na yung ratings niya ay may correlation ng 0.80 or higher sa established norms or expert ratings. Okay? So, ang advantage ng behavioral observation is that hindi ito nakadepende sa self-view ng tao. So, mas mababa yung bias dito ng mga sagot. So very much kasi direct and relatively objective lang yung sinasagot nila. Required siya para sa mga hindi makapag self-report like children, animals, ganyan. That's the advantage of it, 'di ba? They do not depend on people's view of themselves. Walang bias itself, no? However, ang disadvantage niya is that it's costly, expensive sa pera tsaka sa oras. Hindi lahat ng personality traits ay nakikita sa labas. So it's also a disadvantage kasi how do we observe something that we cannot see, 'di ba? Kunwari, depression ay often experienced internally as well as anxiety, 'di ba? and external observations can't tell the whole story of it. So it's a disadvantage kasi hindi kaya, 'di ba? And here comes the interviewing. Yan. Kaya nag-exist yung interviewing kasi syempre hindi natin makikita unless tanungin natin sila about dun sa behavior na yon. And this is one of my favorite kasi uh, puro qualitative yung research ko. Kasi interviews are the most natural and comfortable method. It's just so simple. Uupo ka lang, makikipag-usap, magtatanong, record mo yung sagot, tapos na. Simple lang, di ba? Ang advantage niya sa participant is that puwedeng sabihin ng participant kahit anong gusto nila bilang sagot with or without awkwardness, walang scale, walang kahit na ano, hindi nila kailangan i-quantify yung feelings nila, as in free flowing. Tapos additionally, puwede ka pa mag-add ng follow-up questions until you reach the saturated answers, right? So yung ease nito is yung advantage nito ay leaning papunta sa mga participants. Kasi ang disadvantage ay nasa researcher, okay? Iisipin kasi ng researcher yung coding. Like, paano paano ko lalagyan ng meaning yung mga sagot niya, paano ko saskoran, anong criteria yung gagamitin, ganyan, 'di ba? Gano'n siya. So, mahirap siya sa side ng researcher. Matrabaho kasi siya in scoring and collecting themes, okay? Pero mas masaya siyang gamitin actually kasi parang pagtapos ng interview, yung time consuming na lang ay hawak mo na. Hindi ka na maghahanap pa ng bagong participant, hindi ka na maghahanap ng ganito, ng ganyan. Kailangan mo na lang maglaan ng oras para pakinggan, 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 intindihin yung sagot nila. Okay? Yan. And now, this is one of the most interesting tests, no? Yung projective tests. Ito yung mga test na nagre-represent ng ambiguous stimulus sa participant and inaalam niya yung interpretation nila. Sabi, it is based sa notion daw ni Freud ng projection, which is a defense mechanism. Yung expectation na ang unconscious wishes, thoughts, at motives ay pinoproject ng tao sa ambiguous situations. Ang pinakasikat is the Rorschach ink blot test. Isa siyang series of ambiguous ink blots na pine-present one at a time. Yung participant ay tinatanong like, "Anong nakikita mo dito? Anong color? Anong ganto? Anong ganyan?" And yung mga sagot nila nire-record and kino-code ng trained psychologists kung gaano karaming human at non-human movement, yung color, yung form, yung shading na nakikita ng participant, ganyan. Technically, hindi lang ito para sa mga unconscious motives. Yung supporters nito ay nagsasabing ang response ay makakatulong sa pag-diagnose down ng depression, suicidal thoughts, pedophilia, post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety disorder, ganyan. Gano'n. So that's it 'no. Very much tungkol lang sa kung ano yung iniisip mo, kung paano ka mag-isip, kung ano yung unconscious beliefs mo, parang gano'n siya. That's the part of projective test and it's very interesting kasi how do you know? Paano mo nalalaman yung mga gano'ng bagay? And that's for a psychologist to answer kasi psychometrician pa lang po ako. Magma-masters pa ako, guys. Anyway, eto yung example ng ink blot. Wala 'to sa Rorschach, pero parang ganito siya, 'no? Parang ganito yung mga makikita niyo do'n. 'Yan. So, what can you see? Anong nakikita niyo dito? Huwag niyo sasabihin sa'kin, anything you say is something related sa kung paano tumatakbo yung unconscious mo. Huwag mong i huwag mong iko-comment, huwag kang magcha-chat, 'no? Basta you'll encounter this sa OJT and I'm sure you'll have fun. Okay, now we have the personality questionnaires. Ito na yung pang-apat. Dahil magastos sa oras at magastos sa pera ang behavioral ratings at interviews at ang relative unreliability ng projective test, very unreliable kasi siya. Parang kino-question yung reliability ng projective test. So nagkaroon ng personality questionnaire, which is ang pinaka-common na paraan ng pagsukat ng personality. Ang personality questionnaires ay normally binubuo ng individual statements and yung respondents ay magbibigay ng extent ng kanilang agreement or disagreements about statement. Kadalasan gumagamit ng Likert scale like yung 1, completely disagree, yung 3 neutral, yung 5 completely agree, 'di ba? I know you've encountered that, so I don't need to expound on that, right? Now, may dalawang way ng pag-create ng questionnaire. One is the rational method, which gives us the face validity. Ginagamit dito yung mga reason or theory para gumawa ng questions. Kunwari, directly related dapat, meron dapat face validity na yung question mo ay related sa construct na sinusukat mo, 'di ba? So kunwari, if you want to measure anxiety, kailangan yung question mo would be, I feel anxious much of the time. I feel anxious every single time. Ganon, no? Merong word na anxious itself or something related to it, no? Ito yung face valid. Ito yung face validity. Kasi obvious kung ano yung sinusukat, clearly tungkol siya sa anxiety. And yung mga popular question na gumagamit nito is the NeoPie, right? Now, ang problem nitong rational method is that dahil transparent yung mga tanong, alam ng mga participant kung anong construct yung sinusukat mo, yung mga participants, they tend to give socially desirable or false answers na nagli-lead sa invalid and unreliable results. Kasi kahit ako, kung tatanungin niyo ako kunwari about sa murder case, ganyan, pagiging, serial killer, 'di ba? Kung tatanungin mo ako kung madalas ba ako pumapatay ng tao, siyempre ba't ako mag-a-admit ng totoo, 'di ba? So magmumukha akong killer niyan, mapaghahalataan ako niyan, 'di ba? Gano'n siya, which normally happens, especially kapag negative constructs yung inaaral natin. However, nag-exist si number two, which is the empirical method. Dito, hindi na logic or theory ang basis, kundi actual data at scientific evidence, no? Kunwari, kung nalaman ng kung nalaman ng preliminary research na yung specific statement ay nasasagot ng dalawang magkaibang tao, like kunwari yung isa anxious, yung isa non-anxious person, then gagamitin ito sa anxiety questionnaire or gagamitin ito sa specific na questionnaire. So kunwari, yung question, mas gusto kong maligo sa bathtub kaysa sa shower. And for some reason, yung sagot ng mga anxious people is, I agree. And yung mga non-anxious people, I disagree. 'Di ba? So parang nade-differentiate kung sino yung anxious and sino yung non-anxious. And kahit hindi obvious yung connection, dahil merong empirical data, merong empirical research na nagde-differentiate ng dalawang group, valid yun. Kailangan dito kasi ng outside criterion, no? Halimbawa, evaluation ng therapist sa anxiety levels ng mga tao para ma-validate kung talagang naghihiwalay ng anxious at non-anxious yung item. In simple words, kahit weird yung tanong, kung ang data ay nagpapakita na may correlation sa trait, kailangan gamitin. Kung sa rational, yung basis ay connection sa construct, dito sa empirical, kahit na feeling mo walang connection at first glance, kapag backed by data na merong connection, wala kang choice. Kailangan mo siyang gamitin. Okay? Good. Now, lastly, the social media. The fifth one. No? Galing, no? Social media measurement of personality. Ito yung part ng discussion na nung binabasa ko sa libro, parang huminto talaga ako. No? Binabalik-balikan ko siya. Sabi ko, totoo ba? Social media para sukatin yung personality. Di ba parang off? Parang di naman totoo. Di ba? Pero meron kasi mga research studies. Definitely, ano lang naman to? Simple lang naman to. Merong mga recent studies na nagsasabing yung mga likes mo sa Facebook, mas kaya kanyang mas kaya kanyang i-define as a person, yung personality mo as a person kaysa sa mga kaibigan mo. Yung algorithm na binibigay sa'yo ni Facebook is how Facebook understands your personality. Ganon siya. Depende sa mga nilalike mo. Ganon. And ganon lang. Ganon yung idea. Yung result ng computer-based rating ay mga footprint. Diba? Mga like footprint mo. And na-outperform niya yung rating ng workmates mo, ng colleagues mo, ng friends mo, and family members. And in some points, kaya niya ring talunin yung mga asawa, no? Sa pag-understand ng personality mo. And yun, dagdag pa doon, parang ang sabi din is that Facebook likes ay na-outperform ang lahat Maliban siyempre sa self-ratings, sa pag-predict ng real-world outcomes tulad ng substance abuse, physical health, depression, impulsivity, life satisfaction. Technically, you're leaving a footprint sa social media that makes Facebook and other social media platforms read your personality like a book. And more recently, meron pang research, and they reported na may dalawang separate large-scale meta-analysis ang na-discover na computer-based digital footprint judgments ng personality ay na-outperform ng human judgments. Especially para sa neuroticism and openness to experience. Ibig sabihin, yung mga kaibigan mo, mga family members mo ay less accurate sa pag-judge ng personality mo kesa sa mga computer na nakatingin sa mga likes mo lang. Medyo weird and creepy, no? Alarming. Pero ito na kasi yung mundo natin, the technology world. Nakakatakot, no? Pero parang hindi natin masisisi. Kasi the information na kinukuha nila or na meron sila ay hindi naman nila kinuha ng pilitan. Nasa mga terms and agreements yun, terms and conditions yun na hindi natin binasa basta chinekan lang natin. Okay? So, going back sa analysis ng Facebook likes ng 58,000 people, yung mga nila-like mo ay nagre-reflect ng personality mo. Kunwari, si Nicki Minaj. Yung mga taong gustong-gusto si Nicki Minaj, yung nila-like si Nicki Minaj, may mga research na nagsasabi na 92nd percentile sa extroversion. Yung specific person na yon. And kapag ikaw, nilike mo yung camping, most likely, high emotional stability ka and conscientious ka. In short, bawat like ay nagde-describe ng kung sino ka, no? And most recently, researchers found na kung paano gumalaw yung buong araw at yung pattern ng phone mo, no? Yung text messaging usage mo and yung social media usage mo ay nagpe-predict ng personality traits tulad ng extraversion and agreeableness. Sinasabi lang doon na parang yung mga extroverted people, palaging may ginagawa sa gabi, proven ng data, no? Hindi nila need lumabas pero sa bahay may ginagawa sila every single night. Gano'n lang siya. Gano'n lang siya kasimple. Okay? Now, to finish things up, extroverts are more active sa social networking sites. More photos uploaded, mas madalas mag-update ng status, more posted friends, 'di ba? Mas madaming friends, agreeable people, mas tumatanggap sila ng mga maraming likes and comments sa profile pictures nila. Kaya yung kaibigan mong palaging may bagong story sa Facebook, parang alam mo yun, yung mga laging mga naka-PowerPoint presentation. Sila yung maraming friends, no? Extroverted 'yan. And yung palaging maraming comments sa photos, highly agreeable naman sila. Okay? Now, to wrap this thing up, again, ang personality mo ay ang pagiging ikaw, no? Simultaneously, resulta yan ng mga genes na hindi mo pinili, mga experiences sa loob ng tiyan ng nanay mo bago ka pa man ipanganak, mga non-shared environment mo, yung syempre of course the culture, 'di ba? And even now, bawat like na pinipindot mo sa Facebook. Pero even though knowing all of that, always remember na ikaw ay product pa rin ng mga choices at experience mo sa araw-araw at sa buhay, no? Kung anong gagawin mo doon. Maganda man o hindi, it's up to you to decide kung sino ka in the future. Ito yung pinaka-exciting na conclusion ng personality in Introduction to Psychology. Kahit maraming influences, hindi deterministic. Hindi ka biktima ng genetics mo or ng culture mo. Ikaw yung nagde-decide kung ano ang gagawin mo sa lahat ng factors na yan. Okay? So next time, sa susunod na video, we'll be discussing the stress and health and then the social behavior. Tapos, proceed tayo sa psychological disorder. So follow for more. Thank you so much and you have a great day for now. Bye.